Ridgeline Commercial Realty in 2008. I started my career in real estate in 1999 when I moved to Australia. I did have a bit of a crazy youth. I was a hairdresser, beauty therapist when I first left school. Lasted 6 months in a shop, wasn't for me. Worked at an accountant's, did part of the accountancy thing, that wasn't for me. And then I moved into the bank, did a bit of banking, that wasn't for me. And then I joined the police, and that was for me. So I did that until I came out to Australia. Then decided I didn't want to be in the police, but I still wanted to work with people, still wanted to solve problems. I still wanted to be there to investigate and do all those kind of things and be outside, so not stuck in an office. So I became a commercial real estate agent. So that's what I do now. In my spare time, I'm a mum of twins. One's in Canada and one works for me, which you'll see this picture in a minute. A dog, a couple of horses, like running, like being outside, talk a lot, and like having fun. So that's who I am. So today I was just going to give you a bit of an insight in commercial. We're being asked all the time at the minute, so I want to buy commercial real estate. I want to buy a piece of commercial. I want to do this, I want to do that. So I thought I'd just share what we do and what it is. So here we go. She says she goes forwards or backwards or the right way. She can do this. She's got this. Okay, so people come to us with three problems usually. It's their property is underperforming. They're not getting the return on the investment, or they're looking for a property and they don't even know what the return on the investment they should get. Properties are empty and they need to fill them with tenants, or they've got tenants in there and they can't deal with the tenants. And then the other one is the compliance and also making sure they're not going to get a knock on the door of the council because things aren't being done correctly. So those are the problems that we solve. So we deal with leasing, sales and management. We have predominantly a management and leasing team, and so that's what we do. So people come to me and they say, I want to buy a commercial property, and when they're actually talking about a commercial property, they usually mean a factory. But there's different asset classes to commercial. So commercial is basically anything that you can't live in. It does have an exception where there's a caretaker's residence, which you can have on a warehouse complex and you can live there. But generally it's something you don't live in. So it could be land for a hard stand where you put containers or you put caravans, cars. It could be offices, it could be retail shops, just a single strata shop that you see on the street, or it could be a shopping centre. Office block, single office, and it could be a multi-tenanted complex. So there's different asset classes, and you've got to kind of know what you want to buy if you want to buy one. Generally the entry level is the warehouse, but that's changed a little bit because warehouses have gone up in prices significantly over the last probably 4 years. So office space is a good one for an entry level as well. So with warehouse and office space, if you're moving into that as a purchase, the tenant actually pays most of the outgoings. So that includes your land tax. If you go into the retail section, it comes under the Retail Shop Leases Act. And this is not legal or financial advice. This is just giving you some information. I'm looking over here and I'm looking over here. So if you go into the retail, it comes under the Retail Shop Leases Act. And there's certain things under that act that, as a landlord, you have to do. So you would, if there was air conditioning in when they moved in and it broke down, you would have to replace that. You can't pass on your land tax in a retail lease. And usually the retail is a better income, but it also can cost you more. So you have to pay for the lease for a retail shop. And they range from anything from $2,000 up to $3,000, can be a bit more, depends on how much is toing and froing between the solicitors. On a commercial lease, you can pass that cost on to the actual tenant to pay for the commercial lease. So there's differences in those, and you've got to look at what kind of asset class kind of fits what you're looking for in the future. And everybody's different, but you'll get your advice from your solicitor and your advice from your accountant on what's best for you. And this, with commercial, you really need a team around you. You need somebody, an agent that knows what they're doing. You need solicitors, accountants, you need contractors, because it's something, even though they say it can be a sit and forget, it's never a sit and forget. You can't just sit and let it do its thing because it won't do it. So these are the different types of asset classes. We also, on your asset class, you also have different types of titles. So you can buy a property that's a standard, like you do with a house. You buy a detached house on its own block of land. That's the perfect scenario if you're buying a commercial property on its own land. You control the land, you control what happens there. You're not having to deal with body corpus or anything. So you've got which is a freehold. But you do have stratas, and quite often if you're coming into the market at entry level, you'll probably buy a strata, and it may be a strata warehouse. That means it's one warehouse in a complex of 4, 5 or 10. and you'll have a body corporate that takes care of the common areas, and you'll be responsible for paying into an admin fund and a sinking fund, and that money will then help you to maintain that whole complex. So that's generally where the entry level comes. If you've got a little bit more money, you might be able to buy a standalone, and I'd be going standalone if you could. But if you can't, strata's fine. Community titles, basically it's a similar thing to a strata title, where you don't actually own the common area, you just pay towards the common area. Then you've got a leasehold, where you don't own the land, you own the property, and where KFCs and some of the Sizzlers, some of the McDonald's, they don't necessarily own the land, they rent the land and they build the property on the land, and then when they move on, the owner gets the property and they keep the land. So that's how that one works. And there is one more, which is kind of my favourite. Not a lot of people like it. It's a volumetric lots. Basically, this is where you will have a residential tower, and you can have some retail down below, and you can have some commercial office space, and they're all on different lots, but they're actually based on an airspace. It's a bit confusing, but that means you would be dealing with a body corporate tower, and you would also have a building management group, which is all the lot owners in that complex there are on a building management group, and you all decide, the shared areas, you pay towards shared areas. So that can become expensive, and it's not usually an entry level, so you kind of move up the ranks to where you need to be. So those are just the types of titles. So when you are looking at a commercial property, you're not just looking at the property, you're looking at the land that it sits on and how that affects you with what else you would have to pay, as well as paying for that property itself and the maintenance of that property and dealing with the tenant. Am I making sense?
Yep.
Trying to keep it simple. So there's a heap of, that didn't want to work then. There you go. Wakey wakey. Oh, hey, that's posh, isn't it? You can tell I didn't do this, right? I was like, oh my God, where's it going? It's posh. So we have a bit of jargon in real estate, and I thought I'd just share what that is. So yield, everybody's heard the word yield. What it means is basically the return on your investment. So it's whatever the income is divided by the purchase price or the actual value of the property at that time. Now, the yield is one of these things where it doesn't always factor everything in. So an agent, so we're selling a property at 6% yield. That's it's basically the rental that you're getting compared to the price that you're paying gives you 6%. But that's not taking into effect you've got a mortgage on there and a few other things that need to come out of there. So yield is basically what you're buying a property on. At the minute, the yields on the Gold Coast for warehouses, especially down in Burley, where of southern end of the coast, you're looking around about the 5.5 to 6. There's still a few going at 5, which is what we call a tight yield. Back in 2000s, when I first came in, there was an oversupply of property down in, say, Township Drive. A lot of industrial stuff came up, not enough demand, and the yields then were 10%. Now that sounds amazing, 10% yield, I'm having it, yeah? But they sat empty for over a year. So that 10% yield was good if you could get that tenant in, but because there were so many of them, they sat empty for a year. So when you're buying a commercial, you don't just look at the yield, you've got to look at a lot of other things as well. So the whale is, not the big fat thing that floats around the sea, it's weighted average lease expiry, and basically what that means is, say if you were buying a complex of 6, and each of those had a lease that expired at different dates, you work out what the average lease expiry is. The longer the lease, then the better. It seems like, especially for a valuation point of view, it looks better on the valuation. It's a more secure investment if you're looking to hold it for a long term. But if you were looking to buy it and then develop it and knock it down and do whatever, you wouldn't want to have a long-term leases in there. So again, it's about what you need and what you're looking for. Are you going to develop? Are you going to be an end user moving in? Are you going to need investment for a long period of time? You need to look at a multitude of things. Outgoings. So the outgoings are the running costs of the building. They don't include the tenant's electricity and the tenant's stationery and the tenant's, doing the painting of the bathroom, which some tenants think it does. It's the outgoings, the running cost of the building. So you're looking at your rates, you're looking at your land tax, you're looking at your maintenance, your fire maintenance, compliance maintenance. So, and your body corporate fees, that's what your outgoings are. Now, in some of the rents, if you're buying a property or you're looking at leasing a property, it will either be a gross rent or a net rent. And the gross rent means that your outgoings are included. Again, it's not your electricity, it's not your internet, it's just the running cost of the building. But when they decide on that rental rate, they've actually factored in those outgoings to get to that rental rate. The other option is what we call a net rental. So that is a base rental, and then you pay the outgoings on top. So you pay two amounts. You see a lot of that in retail. You do see it, you didn't used to see it a lot, probably about 15 years ago, you didn't see it very much in commercial. It was very much a gross rent in office and warehouse. We're seeing that change because outgoings go up more than the 3% of the rental. So like your rates may go up 5%, the land tax may go up like 100% just recently. So things on the outgoings go up more than what the rental was going up, and it wasn't keeping up. So you see a lot of the net rents now across the board and everything. Retail lease, I roughly touched on that before. It's governed by the Retail Shop Leases Act, and there's things in there that you can and can't do. That's all I'm really going to say on that. Commercial lease is for everything else that's not a retail lease, and you have a little bit more leniency of what the solicitors can put in there. And there is such things as the RIQ, they have a commercial tenancy agreement, which is for 3 years. So a lot of self-managed owners actually use a retail, some form of a commercial tenancy agreement. Sometimes they do their own, which is not worth the paper it's written on. You should always go and get your solicitor to draft up any contract that you've got with your tenant. And if there's a tenant, you need to make sure you're having a solicitor look over that contract too, to make sure it's actually, the lease agreement is actually what you want it to be. Because quite often people go, I didn't know how to do that, but it's in the lease, but they haven't gone through it and they don't understand it. When you're looking at a property to lease or to buy, you've got to make sure that your business can operate from there. Now, so many times people have come to me and said, oh, I found this place, I've just put an offer in and I'm gonna, and it's a gym, we're gonna go in here. But they can't go in there legally because it's got the wrong zoning. And if they go in there, the chances are Mr. Council's gonna knock on the door and say, I'm sorry, you've gotta go. So then they've got to leave, and then they've got to lease, and there's all kinds of problems there. So you need to make sure that what business you want to do can go into that property. We recently took over a property, and it's a double-story, looks like an office block. But they had a material change of use for it to be education facilities, which means it's to be educational facilities. But we need to be able to prove that to the people that want to go in. So you've got to know what zoning you're in, and just because the zoning is, the whole area is, say, heavy industrial, like in Burley, there's parts of that on Burley Gardens, heavy industrial, fantastic. We're going to go in there, it's heavy industrial. They go into a particular tenancy, and that tenancy itself in that particular complex is not zoned for that. And then they can't get the zoning for the heavy because of the car parking ratio. So you've really got to do your digging of what it is. That makes sense? And the material change of use, I just touched on that before. If you go into a tenancy and it's not what you wanted to do, you can apply for a material change of use. It does cost money, and it's from anything from, say, $20,000 upwards, depending on what material change of use you're going to get. Yeah. And if you do that, then the landlord can say that they want you to put that back to the original material change of use. Because if, say, a gym goes in and the gym leaves, they may not be able to lease it to another gym, and it could sit there empty for 6 months, for 12 months. So it needs to be able to be leased to whoever. So don't make it so that you can't lease it to somebody else when they leave. Does that make sense? So you're looking at basically a multitude of things when you're looking to lease or to buy commercial property. It's not just the yield. The yield is just one part of it. If everything else doesn't fit, then it doesn't matter what the yield is. So you can have a really good yield on a property, and then you think, well, that's all great, and then that tenant moves out, and then you can't lease the thing because it's a quirky shape. It's in a location that the access isn't very good, and the demographics for the kind of properties that are businesses that can go in there is not working. So there's a whole things that you got to look at, and that's why you need a whole team to look at it with you to make sure it is what you need it to be. End users, and look, we've got a property, my hubby's an end user. I can tell you when I went to buy that property, my commercial head was going, nope, 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 yep, maybe, nope, yep, no, okay, maybe, okay, go on then. Kind of thing, you know, because I was going in with my head, he was going in with his heart. But in the end, it ended up being, we had to put money into it, and it took a good few months of battling around to get where we needed to be. But I knew what the zoning needed to be. I knew what we needed to have. I knew what it took. If something happened and his business wasn't there, we needed a property that we can lease out to somebody else. And that's why I turned down a heap of properties that he was looking at. So I wasn't the flavour of the month, as you can imagine, because he wanted to move into it. He was an end user. And this is what happens. End users want to be in a particular place for their business, but their business may not be there forever. Something might happen, or they might choose to relocate and move overseas, and then they have this property. The location is really important. You've got, you need to know where you want to be, but also somewhere that can lease. And your return on your investment is the big thing, Mr. Accountant. It's got to make, the numbers have got to stack up. Commercial is very financial, it has to stack up. Otherwise it's not worth having. But an end user will also push the price up. And when you see a lot of end users coming into a market and you see the prices rise, a lot of that reason is because they're not looking at the return on the investment per se, they're looking at what it means to them. It's like when if they've gone in with a heart like they do with a house and the prices get pushed up. You've got to make sure when you look at something, they might say the yield is 7%, think, oh, that's really good. And then, but when you do your due diligence, it needs a new roof. It needs like 150,000 spending on it. Nothing's been spent on it, you know, and the tenant's really, the owner is selling it, the tenant's really happy, he's been there forever. We never have to do anything, because it's never done anything, you know, nothing's been done. And then you come to buy it and these things are not told, and it needs an upgrade on the wiring, it needs so many things to do. I've done so much due diligence probably this last 6 months on people wanting to buy properties, and we've come to at the end and I go, no, because it's not where it needs to be. So there is a few bargains where you can buy something, it's under rented, means the tenant's not paying the rent that they should, and you've only got like 18 months left of that before you can do a market review and you can lift the rents, and then you'll get to where you need to be on the yield. But so you've also got to look at all the other things. And the layout is a big thing. Square boxes, love them, great. Square boxes work. Quirky corners, angles, all kinds of things, especially if you're buying a warehouse. Go for the most simplest, easy access square box that you can get. Depreciation, we were a property that, so if you get a newer property, we can get depreciation on it, or if they've had renovations, then you can get your depreciation on that. Your accountant can find you some money from somewhere. And yeah, ease of leasing and maintenance requirements on a general thing. What's that going to cost you? Or, you know, how much of that can you put onto your tenant? You can't put all of things onto your tenant because it's capital expenditure. Tenant's only responsible for maintaining things, not for, you know, putting in your new roof or putting in your new solar or putting in your new, you know, anything. So that's basically a little bit about the commercial, just to give you an idea. And this is the team: myself, Sam, twin one, and Rihanna. Rihanna's been with us 10 years. Sam's been 7 years, and I think we have a good team. So we deal with all kinds of commercial from everywhere, all over the Gold Coast. So that's me.
And I know a lot of commercial agents, I have for 20, 30 years, etc. But some people are a lot more switched on in that world than other people. If